I had a dancing life. Dancing was part of my lifestyle in the past, even as strange as these church dances were.
Here's the part no one wants to say out loud. The Brown family didn't fall apart. Kody and Robin dismantled it piece by piece. Kody Brown's greatest public service is his uncanny ability to articulate, without a hint of self-awareness, precisely why his family has collapsed. His recent declaration, "I want to forget she existed, and yet I gotta interact with her kids," offered a rare moment of honesty. A less self-involved man might have paused when corrected with the reminder that those children are also his. But Kody has long treated paternity as a conditional privilege, one granted only to the mothers who remain in his favor. The pattern is unmistakable. Children are valued or discarded based on their mother's standing in Kody's personal power ranking. When he adores the mother, the children are cherished. When he resents her, their existence becomes an inconvenience. It is the emotional maturity of a teenager, married to the ego of a minor celebrity. Unsurprisingly, the only children who consistently receive his attention are those belonging to the one woman he actually seems committed to, Robin, whose offspring are apparently the only ones worthy of nightly tucking in, emergency chauffeuring, and overwrought monologues about pierced ears. Kody's grievances with the ex-wives spill effortlessly onto their children. Rather than remain a steady parental presence, he behaves as though the children are representatives of governments with whom he no longer maintains diplomatic ties. The simple acts of asking about their lives, checking on their well-being, or acknowledging grandchildren seem to require superhuman generosity. Instead, resentment flows downhill. His anger toward their mothers becomes anger toward them, which he then frames as justified disappointment, rather than the petty vindictiveness it is. He behaves like a man whose divorces dissolved biological connections. The idea that he still bears responsibility, daily, consistently, and without fanfare, for the children he helped create, appears utterly revolutionary to him. This is the fundamental tragedy of the Brown family. The children did not merely lose a father. They have spent decades watching him weaponize his love as a prize to be earned through a mother's obedience. The result is predictable. Many of his biological children keep their distance, not because they are rebellious or disloyal, but because they have finally recognized the transactional nature of his affection. Ironically, they are better off. Escaping Kody's emotional roulette has likely spared them further disappointment. His selective parenting extends beyond hurt feelings. It has always functioned as a system of reward and punishment. Favorable wives received his time. Unfavorable wives watched their children pay the price. His refusal to attend Isabel's spinal surgery was one of the more grotesque examples. Being at her side would have given Christine, his least compliant wife at the time, a reward. And thus, he deemed the trip optional. Why see a child in pain when a grudge needs nurturing? This approach transforms children into tools. Their medical crises, milestones, and emotional needs exist in a twisted transactional economy where Kody's goodwill is currency and their mother's obedience defines its value. It is a worldview so self-centered that even he occasionally struggles to disguise it. Equally revealing is his language. Children are never ours unless the mother stands on the correct side of his shifting allegiances. More often, they're hers, as though motherhood alone brought them into existence. Even fatherhood becomes a burden, something he has to perform, rather than something he wants. There is no clearer summary of his parenting philosophy than that single word: gotta. Fatherhood, for Kody Brown, is a chore on par with taking out the trash. Naturally, this has left the family fractured. Many adult children no longer speak to him. He likely doesn't notice. When fatherhood is situational, forgetting a child exists is simply part of the routine. Meanwhile, Kody nurtures a myth that he is an attentive, loving patriarch, so long as one measures love exclusively through his interactions with Robin's children. Their perpetual dependency delights him, not because he enjoys fatherhood, but because it validates his ego. They supply the admiration and emotional reliance he cannot extract from grown children who see through him. Independence has always been Kody's kryptonite. He dislikes self-sufficient children for the same reason he dislikes self-sufficient wives. They do not treat him as the sun around which they must orbit. Robin's older children, preserved in perpetual adolescence, offer him the adoration he craves. It is no wonder he champions them while dismissing the others, whose ability to think or live independently he experiences as personal betrayal.
His former favorite, Madison, offered a cautionary tale. Once she dared speak honestly about his COVID restrictions and his treatment of her mother, his affection evaporated overnight. Criticism, no matter how mild or justified, severs the fragile thread of connection. In Kody's universe, love is unconditional only when it flows toward him, never when it is expected from him. This dynamic also exposes the unspoken truth behind Robin's desperation to keep him tethered exclusively to her household. Her children's dependency is not an accident. It is the ecosystem in which her marriage functions. She has long treated the original wives and their children as threats, her jealousy thinly disguised behind tearful monologues. To maintain her status, she has encouraged Kody's grievances, fed his insecurities, and ensured that any sign of independence in the original families was framed as disrespect. Thus, Kody's version of polygamy never truly operated as a plural family system. It functioned as a hierarchy with Robin at the top, the original wives as supporting cast, and the children as stage props rotated according to the emotional scorecard of the moment. This blend of ego, favoritism, and misdirected anger has shaped every conflict in the family. Even decisions about land, an issue that should have unified the family, became yet another playground for manipulation. Discussions that should have occurred collectively were conducted in isolated, contradictory conversations, allowing Kody to play wives against one another. It created the illusion that disagreements originated between them, rather than from his strategic maneuvering. In truth, these patterns have existed since long before Robin's arrival. Kody perfected the art of triangulation early. He delivered selective information, stoked rivalries, and then complained about the emotional chaos he himself engineered. Robin simply amplified these tendencies. Her contributions came in the form of whispered complaints, performative hurt, and relentless positioning as the misunderstood victim, moves that consistently pushed Kody deeper into resentment toward the original family. Together, they cultivated a household where affection is a prize, communication a weapon, and truth, whatever version serves their narrative that day. Kody Brown's financial mythology deserves its own chapter in the Chronicles of Delusion. For years, viewers clung to the fantasy that poetic justice would eventually intervene, that one day, the empire built on emotional chaos, eyebrow-grazing curls, and televised dysfunction would crumble under the weight of unpaid bills and unearned arrogance. Yet here they stand, Kody and Robin, perched comfortably in their oversized home, refusing to demonstrate even a whisper of the financial ruin so many hoped would befall them. Unfortunately, grifters have the survival instincts of cockroaches. They do not perish when the lights come on. They scuttle into the next production contract. The Browns have managed to remain afloat through a patchwork of income streams. The show's enduring ratings, Kody's enthusiastic cameo hustle, Robin's never-quite-verified business endeavors, and various reality competition appearances that seem designed solely to keep him in front of a camera long enough to air out another tirade. Add to this the equity from multiple properties, the lucrative sale of their previous home, the serendipitous bankability of Coyote Pass, and it becomes clear that financial doom is unlikely to arrive on schedule. The couple could downsize if they ever needed to, but restraint has never been their spiritual gift. Their spending consistently exceeds their wisdom. Kody's history with money is legendary for all the wrong reasons, and Robin's shopping habit has achieved folkloric status. Their shared scarcity mindset manifests not as caution, but as an unshakable belief that windfalls are meant to be immediately spent. Had they invested prudently, they could have established generational wealth for their children. Instead, they opted for the classic high-income, zero-foresight strategy. Their finances are stable only because the show continues, and the show continues because viewers cannot resist the spectacle. For a decade, audiences predicted the series would end any season now, yet the ratings rise with each new scandal. Social media mockery extends their relevance, and every meltdown serves as free promotion. The irony is exquisite. The same public disgust that exposes the dysfunction is also the fuel that keeps their checks clearing. Still, there is a limit to how long a franchise can be carried by marital rubble and recycled plotlines. The show is rapidly catching up to present day, and the cast has shrunk to Kody, Robin, and the lingering ghosts of the family that once pretended to be harmonious. The end will come eventually, and when it does, the Browns' financial competence, or lack thereof, will be laid bare. Robin's mysterious online businesses, allegedly thriving in secret, remain about as credible as Kody's claims of paternal devotion. The odds that she quietly maintains a successful enterprise hidden from public view are non-existent. Every indication points instead to a household buoyed entirely by television money and the remnants of cash siphoned from the original wives over the years. Once that pipeline dries up, so will the illusion of stability. Their lifestyle is not merely lavish, it is unsustainable. The mortgage on their sprawling home, the endless expenditures, the absence of genuine employment, the refusal to budget, all of it paints a picture of people living beyond their means in ways that only reality stars, MLM veterans, and lottery winners can truly master. Their financial history is a loop of mismanagement, dependence on others, and a remarkable obliviousness to long-term consequences. When the show ends, the math will no longer cooperate with their fantasies. Of course, they insist everything is fine. Grifters rarely panic while the checks still arrive. But the moment they are required to exist without the subsidized drama of televised dysfunction, their foundation may show the cracks longtime viewers have anticipated. One can only imagine how long Robin would maintain her dutiful wife routine if the mansion evaporated and a budget entered the chat. Even their safety net, Coyote Pass, was managed with a recklessness that defies logic. The property's equity has helped mask overspending, but the land itself served more as a holding pen for grievances than a real estate plan. Kody's inability to follow through on its development speaks volumes. Whether due to incompetence or a subconscious desire to keep the original family in limbo, his actions ensured the land became a symbol of stagnation rather than unity. Yet the most intriguing subplot involves Robin's older children, whose relationships with their biological father remain shrouded in partial truths and strategic omissions. The show once dedicated episodes to their adoption by Kody, framing their biological father as an absent or inadequate figure. And then, conveniently, he disappeared from the narrative. Rumors have long circulated, reports of adult reunions, whispers of health struggles, allegations of coercion in the parental rights process. None of it has been definitively confirmed. What is known is that after signing away legal rights, he continued hosting visits. Far from vanishing entirely, he appears simply to have been pushed out of the storyline, another casualty of the Brown family's habit of rewriting history to fit the preferred narrative of the moment. Claims of abuse, substance issues, and dangerous behavior remain unproven or vague. Meanwhile, stories of his health battles, dramatic in online retellings, appear more manageable than terminal. In the absence of clarity,
Viewers began questioning how Robin can weep over the tragedy of children lacking a father, while seemingly indifferent to the fact that she once severed theirs from their biological parent. The hypocrisy is not subtle. It becomes even more conspicuous when she chastises other children for pulling away from Kody, as though their distance is a moral failing rather than a natural response to his selective parenting. Her statements about the necessity of a father conveniently ignore the fact that her own children stopped seeing theirs once they joined the Brown household. The sermon about the importance of dads becomes harder to swallow when taken alongside the show's long silence regarding her ex-husband. That silence underscores one of the recurring truths of the Brown universe. Narratives are crafted not for accuracy, but for emotional utility. When an uncomfortable truth threatens Robin's preferred image, devoted mother, dutiful partner, perpetual victim, it is quietly shelved. Viewers notice, they always have. The belief that Robin is merely shy or anxious becomes increasingly difficult to maintain. Her awkward giggles, downcast eyes, and soft-spoken distress function less as vulnerability and more as theater. She has perfected a brand of manipulation so subtle that even the other wives initially mistook it for sensitivity. Yet when one watches closely, the gears are visible. Her demure reactions often coincide with situations in which she benefits, whether by garnering sympathy, deflecting blame, or nudging Kody into another round of righteous indignation on her behalf. Her discomfort seems aimed not at the dysfunction, but at being the last remaining wife forced to shoulder the burden of filming without the original women carrying the emotional and narrative weight. She is now required to participate fully, something she had successfully avoided for years. Filming no longer revolves around the other's conflicts, businesses, or personal growth. It now requires her to provide content. And in that spotlight, she appears less serene and more overwhelmed.
Compounding this is the embarrassment of being publicly tethered to Kody's increasingly erratic behavior. His declarations of undying affection, his self-aggrandizing antics, even his attempts to rival Christine and David's on-screen chemistry. All of it creates a circus in which Robin is expected to play the devoted partner, while the tent slowly catches fire. Her unease grows with every episode. His performative masculinity, his sudden obsession with sexual innuendo, his repeated proclamations of passion, these are not the gestures of a man in love, but of a man desperate to prove something. To Christine? To viewers? To himself? Perhaps all of the above. But for Robin, who built her identity on wifehood as sacrifice, it is mortifying. Meanwhile, Christine radiates happiness with David, which fuels Kody's spiraling attempts to demonstrate he too is desirable. It is an unconvincing spectacle. Robin, perpetually aware of the public's disdain, knows she is trapped in a storyline where she is the least sympathetic character in a cast famous for dysfunction. And the weight of that knowledge hangs over every stammered sentence, every exaggerated sigh, every attempt to avoid direct answers. Her facade is cracking. The giggles and tearful tremors no longer obscure the reality. She is the last woman standing beside a man who openly resents his past, resents his children, and resents the reality that his once sprawling family no longer bows to him. Kody Brown's downward pirouette into self-obsession reaches its purest form on a dance floor. His dancing, if one is generous enough to call it that, reveals everything about his relationships that he fails to articulate in ordinary conversation. It is frenetic, uncoordinated, demanding of attention, and executed with the confidence of a man convinced he is the most captivating attraction in any room. Nothing captures the essence of Kody quite like his insistence on being the center of gravity while simultaneously resenting anyone who dares to share the stage. Naturally, he despises instruction and bristles at structured movement. Being asked to follow a rhythm that is not his own appears to wound him deeply. His intolerance for guidance is almost admirable in its consistency. Whether in marriage, parenting, or ballroom dancing, he cannot fathom a world in which he is not the unrivaled authority. His former wives understood this long before the viewers did. His dancing exposed what they already lived. He didn't want partners. He wanted spectators. Their roles were to applaud, orbit, and sacrifice, while he flung himself through life like a man auditioning to be the human embodiment of static electricity. Unsurprisingly, their enthusiasm waned. A person can endure only so many performances before realizing they're watching someone audition for applause he did not earn. In contrast, Kody believes he possesses genuine charm and impressive moves. His confidence is not merely unearned, it is bulletproof. He dances as though the world is applauding, even when the world is, at best, trying not to laugh. The same delusion colors his self-presentation on reality competition shows, where his refusal to shower became yet another odd subplot. For a man once obsessive about cleanliness, grooming routines, and impeccable hair care, he suddenly declared bathing to be optional, an eccentricity he defended with the solemnity of a survivalist. Perhaps the shower lacked water pressure. Perhaps he felt exposed. Perhaps he believed that ruggedness and odor formed the bedrock of masculinity. Whatever the reason, the result was predictable. His personal stench became yet another metaphor for the festering self-regard he carries into every space. Even his fellow cast members seemed bewildered. After all, their environment is physically demanding, their hygiene needs obvious, and their willingness to use available showers unremarkable. Kody alone regarded bathing as a personal affront or a logistical impossibility. The consistency is stunning. He has an uncanny ability to identify the most reasonable expectation in any situation and declare it unacceptable. Robin, naturally, remains the gravitational center of his universe. Their interactions reveal a man eager for validation and a woman who built her identity around providing it. Until now. Viewers have watched Robin oscillate between tearful helplessness and calculated influence for years. But with the dissolution of the original family, she can no longer hide behind the chaos they provided. Without 3 other wives to absorb the narrative weight, Robin is fully exposed as a person whose contribution to the family dynamic was never balance or collaboration, but passive destabilization wrapped in soft-spoken sorrow.
She spent years insisting she wanted sisterhood, even as she quietly undermined it. She presented herself as the peacemaker while delivering information that guaranteed conflict. She claimed innocence as chaos erupted around her, always with Kody erupting on her behalf, always with her standing just behind him, the picture of concern. Her emotional fragility served as a lever in every argument. Her whispered worries transformed into Kody's volcanic monologues. Now, the spotlight she once avoided turns fully onto her. Filming demands active participation, not peripheral commentary. And with the original wives gone, she can no longer perform the role of overwhelmed newcomer trying to navigate a complex family. She is simply the last wife standing, next to a man whose charisma has evaporated and whose grievances have become his only storyline. Robin's discomfort is not the discomfort of someone caught in emotional crossfire. It is the discomfort of someone forced to finally carry her share of narrative responsibility. And she cannot retreat behind the usual defenses because Kody now requires her not just to support his ego, but to bolster his image at a time when he is publicly unraveling. That is a tall order even for someone well-practiced in the art of strategic sympathy. Christine's flourishing new life with David only sharpens the contrast. While she glows with contentment, Kody performs a tortured pantomime of passion, insisting he is still desirable by shouting declarations of attraction into any available microphone. He behaves as though Christine's happiness is a personal affront that must be countered by increasingly theatrical claims of his own romantic vitality. This is not devotion.
it is desperation. Robin, already battling public disdain, now finds herself tethered to a husband determined to outdo his ex-wife in the arena of televised affection. His efforts are cringe-inducing enough to mortify a teenager, let alone a woman who once prided herself on being the tasteful, sensitive, grounded presence in the family. Her expressions reveal everything: embarrassment, resignation, and the dawning realization that Kody's performance is not for her, but for the viewers he believes are comparing him to Christine's new partner. As the seasons progress, the cracks in their dynamic widen. Robin's anxieties, once interpreted as sensitivity, now appear as a need for control. Her emotional fragility seems less like genuine vulnerability and more like a protective barrier meant to keep Kody fully allegiance-bound to her. She is the last remaining beneficiary of his selective parenting, the final audience for his grandiosity, and the only person left whose approval he still desperately seeks. Yet even their alliance is fraying under the weight of his self-inflicted isolation. Robin looks increasingly unsettled, not because she regrets the family's collapse, but because she must now endure the consequences without the insulation once provided by the other wives. She no longer has rivals to vilify, nor sister wives to blame. The narrative now rests squarely on her relationship with Kody, an ongoing spectacle of codependence, self-importance, and mutual delusion. Meanwhile, the viewers who have followed this saga for over a decade wrestle with their own dilemma. The show has reached a point where it feels like a parody of its former self. It has jumped the shark, then beaten the shark senseless, dragged it back for a reunion special, and left its carcass in the sun. Yet audiences remain unable to look away. Some continue watching out of habit, others out of morbid fascination, and many from sheer loyalty to the original wives, whose departures provided the kind of emotional payoff rarely seen in reality television. Their journeys toward independence, self-esteem, and new beginnings offered the catharsis the series never delivered through the Browns' collective efforts. But there is a limit. Viewers are beginning to ask how many more episodes can be built around Kody's melodramatic reflections, Robin's trembling whispers, and yet another round of dancing lessons that reveal nothing new other than Kody's continued refusal to follow basic instructions. Even long-term fans acknowledge that the show is barreling toward its own expiration. The only remaining suspense revolves around when the network will accept what viewers already know. The story is over. The family has disintegrated. The marriages are gone. The dynamic is irreparable. And the narrative energy has shifted entirely to those who have moved on. Only Kody and Robin remain, clutching at a version of family life that no longer exists. And yet, there is a strange satisfaction in witnessing the natural consequences unfold. The original wives have reclaimed their lives, their dignity, and their futures. The children have learned to prioritize their mental health over their father's emotional volatility. Robin and Kody, meanwhile, are left to navigate the hollow empire they constructed together, an empire built on favoritism, resentment, and a carefully curated fantasy that collapsed the moment authenticity entered the frame. The Browns' saga began as a story about faith, family, and plural marriage. It ends as a case study in ego, manipulation, and the destructive force of conditional love. The show may continue for a season or two more, dragging its tired limbs across the finish line. But its legacy has already crystallized. The original wives survived. The children adapted. Kody and Robin are left holding the bag, and the cameras. And for once, the mathematics of karmic balance seem remarkably precise.